Hi everyone, I'm Heather Poduska, star maker to entrepreneurs who want to unlock their potential and command any stage. Welcome to Thrive, the show where I bring you tips, resources, and people to help you create a more abundant life and business. You are in for high-value content coming to you from industry leaders who are growing their business, making an impact, and rocking their brands. Welcome to the show. Here we go. Hi everyone, I'm Heather Poduska, founder of the Brand Star Academy, where I teach entrepreneurs how to be powerful, profitable speakers and create their own celebrity personal brands. Welcome to this episode of Thrive, Beyond the Bestseller, with my special guest, Tamara Patzer. Tamara Patzer is an executive producer, a national speaker, a TV personality, and the owner of Blue Ocean Authority, where she helps entrepreneurs get their message out in a big way. And I was so thrilled to have Tami as my guest on the show today because she is someone I've known for a while now, and I have watched her evolve over the past few years into a powerhouse, someone who is moving and grooving and rubbing shoulders with people nationally. She has been on a national television tour. She has spoken at the Harvard Young Entrepreneurs Club. I know that she just did a speaking tour in New York where she spoke at NASDAQ. She's doing amazing things and helping entrepreneurs not only create best-selling books, but then go on and leverage their best-selling books to make a lot of money and influence. So today on the show, we talk about what it means to have a bestseller. Tami gives us specific tips on how to make an Amazon best-selling book. And she also shares with us what you need to do with that book to then make real money. And she tells the story of how she used just one little book to generate over $500,000 of income. She also talks to us about the importance of using your book and your author authority to spread your impact. She shared so much with us. And the number one thing she told us that you need to keep in mind when you're writing your book so you know what to think about to make money. So I really enjoyed this episode, and actually we did a two-part episode with Tami because she had so much great content to share with us. So we're going to do part 2 next week. This is part 1. So I hope you enjoy this. Tami is really a treasure of information and resources, and so kind and generous with her expertise. And as always, if you would like to know how to become a star in your industry, if you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, someone who's already in business for a while and you are ready to take your business to the next level, and you know you need a clearer message, you need to zip up your brand, you need some kind of signature hook in the marketplace so that you can really stand out and bring all of it together to position yourself to get on better stages, to get interviewed for podcasts, to be ready with your message for television interviews. I really want to encourage you to check out my programs for private coaching. You can go to my website at heatherpoduska.com and click the consulting tab. I would love to talk with you if that's something that you are interested in. Okay, I hope you enjoy this episode of Thrive. Hi, I'm Heather Poduska, star maker to entrepreneurs who want to become powerful, profitable speakers. Welcome to Thrive, the show where I bring you tips, resources, and people to help you create a more abundant life and business. You're in for high-value content coming to you from industry leaders who are growing their business, making an impact, and rocking their brands. Today, I have a very special friend with me, Tamara Patzer. Tamara Patzer is an executive producer, publisher, and the owner of Blue Ocean Authority, where she helps women entrepreneurs and professionals get their message out on a major scale by helping them become best-selling authors, making them hosts of their own radio shows, and by showing them how to get booked and leverage big media appearances on outlets such as ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and the CW. Tami currently has over 64 authors who've written through her system to become bestsellers. And Tami herself is a multi-time bestseller with her most recent book series, Women Innovators. And she's currently doing a national TV appearance tour, traveling from Florida to California, educating audiences about social media. And recently, Tami won the Author Marketing Award from the Harvard Business Expert Forum. What a powerhouse. I could not be more excited to have Tamara Patzer in the house.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather.
Thanks for being here. And you know everything about media and social media and publishing. So how did you get to be such an expert on creating visibility for people?
Wow. Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
No, really, it all started when I was a little girl, and I used to interview my mother, who was a writer, in a pretend radio show. And I would dream that someday I would be able to help promote my mom, who, we were sure was going to become an international best-selling author, on this show. And I would think about being on TV, and I wanted to be an actress. And it didn't quite happen that way, but I did become a journalist, and I went on to get my master's degree in mass communications, and I actually taught mass communications at Florida State, not Florida State, but University of South Florida in Tampa for many years. I also created the social media certification program at Florida Gulf Coast University. And all of this media, as it grew and exploded, there came a time when it was, I better learn how to use this newfangled thing called the internet. And I learned how to use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it became really obvious to me that people needed to leverage social media and the internet. And I had this passion about books and publishing, because not only was my mother an author, but I've dabbled in it. I write poetry, and I was always writing something. And I used to create little booklets with the copy machine and staples, and that was my self-publishing. And it used to be really difficult to get published. You had to have an agent, and to be a true author, you had to have like a New York publishing company. But then something called Amazon happened. And when Amazon created the Kindle publishing system, everything changed. And I put what I knew how to be a newspaper editor. I knew how to be a TV show producer. That was one of the other hats I had done. And I knew how to produce content. So all of that tied together was like, gee, Tami, you should help authors publish their books. And then I found out that, gee, I can help people not only just publish their books, I can help them become best-selling authors. And then it was like people started to say, well, Tami, what's next? Mm-hmm. And so that is a long or a short story about how I kind of put the puzzle together to create what I do now.
Yeah, and I like that you said, what's next? Because you and I were just at this event at Harvard where you won the award for the author marketer.
Yes.
The award, Best Author Marketer. And the thing that I noticed from being at the Harvard event, everybody was speaking about their businesses, and every other person up there was best-selling author. So this was a room of highly accomplished people. But you have to know what to do with best-selling author to make money from it, right?
Exactly.
Because a lot of people have best-selling books. But how do you take that book and turn it into profits? And that's what you're really helping people do, right?
Yes, the number one thing you need to do to make your money, or make your book make you money, is know that you're not going to be making money from selling a bunch of books. That is probably the biggest myth out there, that you're going to get a big advance and a big publisher is going to publish you. The truth is that to make a book a bestseller on Amazon, you have to, number one, write a book that people are interested in reading. Number two, you have to do what is called a bestseller campaign, because Amazon actually measures book sales not by the week, not by the day, but by the hour.
Wow.
So you have to sell a bunch of books in an hour, in a 24-hour period, and climb the charts. And that means putting your book at this no-brainer price of about 99 cents, which means you'll make about 35 cents. So think about that. If you wanted to make $100 at 35 cents, well, you would have to sell about 300 books. And that is not that easy unless you're using a marketing budget, and that's a whole other story. But because you can become a bestseller in different categories, you have to do a lot of research and really understand the topic of your book, what the categories are that people would be looking for your book so that they'll actually find it and buy it. That's how Amazon bestseller status works. So that's really important. But like I said, it's not about the bestseller at all. It's about what is beyond that. So if your book is your tool,
Right.
you have to go, well, how am I going to make money with this tool? And the way that I see that is, let's say, for example, you help people become speakers. So maybe the way you're going to earn money from your book is to use it as a good old prop. And maybe you may be a paid speaker, or maybe you have a product that you're going to sell from speaking, and your book lends you credibility because people see authors as the expert. And it is really true. If you can write a book on a topic, you know about that topic. But in the world, in the United States especially, people hold authors and books in high esteem. People do not throw books away. If anything, if they don't want it anymore, they'll donate it or they'll give it to someone. So again, it's a tool. You're not going to make a bunch of money selling books. But I have a book, for example, I wrote in 2011. It's called Ask Tami, 365 Social Media Tips, Tricks, and Tools. So that book, I bet I've only sold 100 copies, if that. But I've made more than $500,000 with it.
What?
Yeah, what? And how I did that was I used it as a prop, and I went into my local community, so anybody can do this with a book. I took my book, and there it was, on the table as a prop. And I went out and I spoke to the Community Foundation for nonprofits, for example. I spoke to Rotary clubs. I spoke at Toastmasters. I just spoke at Chambers of Commerce. Everywhere I went, I used my book as a prop. One day, in the audience was the director of adult education at Florida Gulf Coast University. He came up to me after this presentation where I think I was talking about the top 10 things you need to know about social media today. And he said, Tami, would you consider teaching a class about social media for Florida Gulf Coast University? And I'm like, sure. And that turned into me actually creating the very first social media certification program offered at Florida Gulf Coast University and probably in the state of Florida. And that turned into students coming into the class. They were so pleased with the first class because they had like 50 people sign up. These people that were coming out of the woodwork. They were CEOs of all these companies because it was like they needed to know about social media. So they weren't really interested in that certification, but they were really interested in learning about what that meant. And so I started to get clients. And some of those clients are still my clients today. And just recently, I got a brand new client from that course because they saw I taught it And they said to themselves, well, if she can teach a university level class on social media, she could probably come and do a custom course for my company. And that's exactly what happened. I'm doing a custom training course. So that book is making me more money than I could ever make just selling the book at, 35 cents to a couple dollars per book.
Yeah.
Because that's the power of the book as a tool in business.
Right. I think there's the same misconception about speaking. I mean, you can get paid a lot of money to speak,
Yes.
but it's a one and done.
Right.
You speak, it's $25,000 for your appearance, you go home. But that's not where people leverage the opportunity. Right. It's like you said with the book, it's like getting people into your funnel and having them get to know you and buy your products and all of those things that you just talked about. So I think it's a really similar thing. But talk to us a little bit more about knowing what kinds of books to write. I've interviewed other you're not a book coach in that sense, like writing coach, but I've interviewed other writing coaches and asked them this question: how do you know what book to write?
Well, in the business world, the book you write is the book that you know. It's the book that is inside you based on your expertise, because we are all operating from our zone of genius. So, for example, the books that I personally can write, actually I have a very wide range. For example, I can write about social media. I can write about YouTube or video marketing. I can write about parathyroid issues because I had a parathyroid tumor, and I actually wrote a book called The Joy Robber, because a parathyroid, it controls the calcium in your blood, and if you have a tumor, you literally are very sad a lot. So I called the book The Joy Robber. And the book about my 365 social media tips, tricks, and tools. If I were a tax accountant, I might write a book about taxes. If I am an attorney, I might write a book about what you need to know. For example, when we were at the Harvard Faculty Club recently, there were authors there, and one struck me so much because the book you wrote was about child protective services.
Oh, yes.
And I was going, whoa, I had never ever thought about that as a topic for a book, about how people can lose their children and they don't know how to fight back. And I really didn't know that issue was such an issue that you really needed a child protective services attorney to handle. So that was a shocking issue, but I also learned about functional medicine. And I was like, what's functional medicine? And there are all of these doctors who are leading the charge for people to take their health care into their own hands. And so I was like, wow. And then Suzanne Somers was there, and she has a new book called Toxic to Not Sick. And I was fascinated that she had written 25 books, and about half of them have been New York Times bestsellers. And Suzanne Somers, for example, is a really good example of someone that I would say, in my personal mind, I underestimated who she was until I saw her speak. And Suzanne Somers, as many people know, has been an advocate for bioidentical hormones, for example. She talks about healthy aging. She also said that her very first book was a book of poetry.
I know. I was so excited to hear that was artistic, and I loved that.
So I would say you should write the book that is inside you, but before you do that, you do have to know, well, who's going to read this book? And so you would want to sit down and think about, who are my readers? Because your readers are going to be either buying your book or they're going to be your customers. And you have to look at, again, we're not talking about a fiction
Right.
book or a novel. That's a whole nother story. And just to let you know, romance is the toughest category out there. Yet I've actually helped people become best-selling romance
Wow.
authors. And let's just say I had to work really hard to do it. But if you're a business person, and this could be, you're a doctor, you're an attorney, you're a dentist, you're a poison ivy removal guy. And he's another person that I met at the Harvard Faculty Club. I was just amazed at the different types of professions and the different types of books that people can write. So it would just be, look at who you are. And my favorite tip is to set the timer. Just set the timer on your iPhone or on your phone or an ordinary kitchen timer for 15 minutes. And take a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper and set that timer and say, well, who am I? And start writing. What do I like? What do I know about? For example, I actually did that, and it was like, okay, I know about, for example, when I was 15 years old, I wanted to raise money to go to Disneyland. I lived in Oregon, and I had a gold mine in our yard. And thanks to my mother, I discovered this gold mine. It was called worms, night crawlers. So we would water the lawn, and then at night, we'd go out with a flashlight, and these big old fat night crawlers would be lying right on top of the grass. All you had to do is pick them, hence the term picking worms. And I would go pick worms, and I sold them for 3 dozen for $1. And how I did that is I painted a sign, a big old piece of plywood, and it said, Mr. Wiggles.
Oh my God, that's
then
awesome.
Night crawlers, and then 3 dozen, $1. And we packaged them in coffee cups. And my mom bought this recycled newspaper stuff. And we would wet it down, and I'd count 1, 2, 3 dozen. And normally I'd add a couple extra ones, and I'd always make sure that they were alive and very wiggly. And 5 a.m., ding dong.
Because the fishermen want to go fishing.
Knock, 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 knock. And the fishermen, so I'd be, get up, and I'd go out there with my flashlight. How many do you want? And they'd normally get 3 dozen, 6 dozen, 12. I mean, we really had quite a little enterprise going on. But that's an example of, I could probably write a book about different entrepreneurial endeavors for kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, Tami, every time I talk to you, you have a different book idea, like a new one. We were parking the other day, and you have a book idea about parking, and I was like, oh my God, the ideas, they just flow out of you. It's amazing.
Well, what I think it's so fun because you actually, everybody, I'll just tell you about Heather Poduska. She has this gift about titles and about words, and you can say, I'll say to her, well, what do you think about this? And she'll actually just go, oh, well, do this, do this. And it's like you have this gift for coming up with really great titles of books and programs, and it's just phenomenal. So I'll just put a little shout out for Heather.
You're so kind. You're so kind. That's so nice. Hi everyone, it's Heather again. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Thrive. Every week we try to bring you people and information to help you change your life for the better, to grow your business, to expand your thinking, and to open your heart. If you did enjoy this content, I would so appreciate it if you would go to iTunes and review us. Let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. And if you found this information helpful or useful in any way, please share it on out. Let your friends and family know about Thrive. And finally, if you'd like to know more about me, you can visit me at heatherpoduska.com. Until next time, here's to hitting all your high notes.